To Career Focus Essential Networking Tips webinar. My name is Reese Jolch, and I will be your technical producer and moderator this evening. This webinar will be presented by Diane Bassett. Our goal is to provide the tips and inspiration you need to kick off your networking into higher gear. Before we start the presentation, let's take a moment to ensure that everyone is ready and familiar with the webinar control panel. On the right side of your screen, you will see the attendee control panel, and on the left is the webinar viewer window. This viewer window will display the presenter screen when the webinar begins. The control panel can be minimized or expanded by clicking on the horizontal double arrow button in the left-hand corner. Minimizing the panel allows for a better view of the presentation. Take a moment to practice. There are a few features of the control panel that the attendees should know. First, be familiar with the Raise Your Hand button. This button is located along the left side of the control panel. It allows you to virtually raise your hand if you have a question or if you want to respond to a question being asked by the presenter. Click on this button to raise your hand now. Clicking on it again will lower your hand. Another important feature of the control panel is the questions pane. To submit a question, type it into the questions. These may be questions related to the presentation or technical questions related to the GoToWebinar system. You may be asked by the presenter to type your ideas or responses here as part of an exercise. Please send us a quick note in your questions panes now, such as hello or plans that you have for the week. Great. Hello, everybody. Laura says that it's very cold in Idaho, and I'm sure it is. Haley says hello. We have hellos from Christine, Jordan, Megan, April, and a lot of other fantastic people. We have Valeria, who's excited to be here, and we're excited to have you here. So it looks like that feature is working well for everyone. Again, if you have questions, feel free to type those into the questions pane at any time, and we'll be able to address those. So during the webinar, you may be asked to respond to a polling question or survey. Please take the time to participate as your ideas are valuable to the group. Be sure to stay attentive and to interact as much as possible during the webinar. If you need to step away, however, for a moment, do not close the GoToWebinar window, as you will be required to log in once again if you wish to rejoin. If you do experience any problems with audio, one possible solution is to use the conference call number and listen to the presentation using your phone. You will click the Use Telephone option in the audio pane of your control panel to view the conference call number. The webinar is being recorded, and the online archive will be available to view on the Kappa website in approximately 2 weeks. Are there any questions? If you have a question, raise your hand or type it into the question pane now. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and start the webinar. Diane, I'll go ahead and hand you that virtual microphone.
Thank you, Reese. Hi, everybody. My name is Diane Bassett, as Reese said, and I'm really happy to be here with you tonight. We're going to talk about sort of the practical aspects of networking, and many of you submitted some questions in advance, which I really want to thank you for. They were really helpful, and I hope to be able to address many of them today. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end as well. So if you come up with some additional questions, feel free to either jot them down or type them right into your panel there, and we'll cover those at the end. Okay, so let's get going. We have a lot to cover. So the first thing we want to do is talk about some important concepts. The first is, don't be overly needy. Show that you're doing your part. Let me explain what this means. On Kappa Connections, we get a lot of people sending out an email, even though we have tried to educate them not to do this, that says something to the effect of, hey, I'm graduating in June and I'm looking for a job in event management. Help, does anybody have any suggestions? And I'm like, okay, that's being too needy. So let me give you an example of a better way to approach that. Help, I'm graduating in June and I want to be an event manager. I'm willing to live anywhere on the East Coast, and I've done my research, and even though I'm open to any event management firm, the top 3 firms that I'm interested in are this one, and this one. Do you happen to know anybody who works in the event management field? If you do, I would really appreciate it if you would get permission for me to call them for a 10-minute phone call where I can just ask them some questions about the industry, learn a little bit more about their company, and just get a little bit more data. I promise not to take more than 10 minutes. If any of you have a contact like that, please contact me. I'd be so grateful. See how that's more specific? Really, you're asking for a very specific call to action. It's not, does anybody have a job for me? It's, do you have a contact in this field that you would be willing to connect me with for a 10-minute phone call? So when you phrase it that way, very specific, that's actionable, and that's something that people can relate to. I may not know, I'm not in the event management field, I may not know the names of the top companies in there, so it's helpful to provide that. If you have a target list of companies, it's helpful to provide that, because my next door neighbor may work for XYZ company, and I don't really know what that company does, but I know that's the name of her company, and I may say, oh, look at that, that's my neighbor's company. Or, on the other side, I may not know the name of the company that my neighbor works for, but I may know that she's an event planner. So I could possibly help you in either way there. Okay, the second point is reciprocity. This is really important. Many of you in your questions said something to the effect of, I'm nervous about networking because I'm feeling like it's kind of like using people. I feel like it's awkward or forced, and I'm not used to asking for help with stuff, and why would that person want to help me? It's because there's an agreed upon reciprocity in this. It's like, I'm going to help you today, and someday you're going to help me. And so even though there may not be an immediate reciprocity, there is this implied reciprocity. So I want you to feel free to offer help to people, and I want you to feel free to ask for it. But when you ask for help from somebody and they step forward to help you, even if that help didn't turn out to be extremely super helpful, you owe them. And you really owe them to stay in touch with them and to be ready, willing, and able to be of assistance to them in some way. And it may not be in exactly the same way. It may be in a different way. But it's that whole concept of reciprocity. So what goes around comes around. This is why you should be comfortable with the concept of asking for help and networking in this way. So it's that whole goal of reciprocity. We're looking to cultivate mutually beneficial give-and-take win-win relationships. Now, in many cases, we're not going to know immediately how we can be of use to each other. Part of this is learning how to just create relationships with people in your field so that over time you've already got that established. Then when a need comes up, lo and behold, you know who to call. So we'll go into that in a little more detail. The next point is, don't make me regret having offered to help you. Let me give you a specific example. We had a situation where a Kappa was interested in going into the brewing business. And she shot out a message that said something to the effect of, I know this is a long shot, you probably don't have any contacts in this field, but does anyone have any, contacts in the brewing business? And I said, you know what, I think I have an awesome contact. My sister-in-law is the manager for a restaurant/bar in San Francisco that happens to be the second largest purchaser of beer next to Pac Bell Park, which is now called something else. And I called her on behalf of this gal, and I said, hey, is it possible that you have a lot of really good contacts in the beer and brewing industry? And she said, yes, because I'm like their huge customer. And I said, we have a Kappa who's trying to build some contacts in that industry, and I'm wondering if you would help be willing to help provide an introduction to her. And she said, oh, if I made some phone calls for this gal, they would be very nice to her because I'm a really big customer. So they will bend over backwards to be nice to her for me. I said, awesome. I went back and I contacted this gal, and she never followed up. I went to all that effort for her. I paved the way, and she never followed up. That is a huge networking no-no. So that's an example of making me having regretted having offered to help her. Never, never do that. So if somebody offers to help you, chances are they've already gone to some effort before they come back to you. And you must follow up. If for any reason you decide that that contact that they are offering is not necessarily going to be a good fit for you, or if for any reason you don't want to actually pursue it, you absolutely owe it to them to get back to them and say, I want you to know I really appreciate you having set that up for me. I've decided to go in another direction, and I'm not going to pursue it. And would you please extend my thanks to that person for having been willing to talk to me? So enough said on that. Mind your etiquette on that stuff. Okay, so the important thing that you need to know here, many of you asked, how do I take advantage of Kappas? How do I network with Kappas in my field? What I really need you to understand is that that's a limiting way to look at this. What you want to look at is chances are that a Kappa themselves is not going to have a job for you. You're not going to find a Kappa in your field who's going to have a job for you. That's fairly unlikely, partially because when we go out in the business world, we do not wear our Kappa keys on our sleeves. There are a lot of people out there in the business world who never had an opportunity to be in the Greek system, who might have a negative opinion of the Greek system. Maybe they were envious they couldn't be part of it. Maybe they had a bad experience with it or whatever. But when you go out into the business world, you do not wear a big sign on you that says, I was in a sorority. That's not considered cool. So what you do want to do is take advantage of our wonderful Kappa network, because every one of us has about 250 personal contacts that we could pick up the phone and call, and they would return our call. And so my network and my network's network is of value to you. So my network included my sister-in-law. Her network included all of those brewing contacts, and I was willing to connect her network to that Kappa. So think of us as being a pool of people who would be willing to tap into our networks to help you. But you probably have additional networks like that in your life. Your parents' friends are a wonderful source. Think of them exactly the same way. Learn how to ask them for help. One example might be you are a Kappa active. You are home for Christmas break. You are at a Christmas party where all of your parents' friends are, and they're asking you, Susie, how's school going? Oh, and you say, school is going great. And one of the things I'm focusing on as soon as I get back after Christmas break is I'm trying to line up a summer internship. And I'm really looking for something in a law firm. And I'm wondering, do you happen to have any contacts in a law firm that I could maybe talk to for 10 minutes to find out what the process is for interns and how interns might be used in a law firm? And chances are, if regardless of whether they're in the law industry, they certainly know someone who is, and chances are they would say something like, you know what, I know a couple of people. Let me make a couple of phone calls and get back to you. And chances are within 48 hours, you would have somebody in a law firm who's willing to take a 10-minute phone call from you to learn a little more. And that 10-minute phone call could end up being really lucrative for you. So do you see how that works? You have pools of people in your life. We Kappas are one pool. Your parents' friends are another pool. If you're a mom and you've got kids in school, the mom network is a hugely wonderful contact or network. So every one of those people has at least 250 people that they know who might, and one of those contacts might be of interest to you. So what we need to do is get really great about knowing what we need to ask for, and also on the reciprocity side, constantly listening to see how we can be of help to other people as well. Okay, so let's talk about Kappa Connections. You probably know that Kappa Connections is a simple Yahoo Groups email list, and it's a great place to practice. So feel free to come there and practice your networking skills. Let's talk about how to use it. We already covered the concept of asking for concrete help versus general help, and doing your homework before you ask, and what not to ask, i.e., does anybody know of a job in, a job for me in Chicago? Don't expect this immediate network to pony up an exact job for you. Expect us to tap into our network of contacts to help connect you with the next person who can help you in the next step of your journey. If you get an offer from somebody, the next point here is what to do if you get an offer from someone. If you get an offer of help from somebody, as I mentioned earlier, you must follow up with the person they're connecting to you to, and you should also follow up with them and thank them and let them know what happened. And here is the URL to the Kappa Connections group. If you're not part of that, you should be. Let's talk about, this is of particular interest to actives right now, networking in your field before you graduate from college. If I knew then what I know now, let me tell you what I would have done differently. My sophomore year, I would have started identifying the industries that are of interest to me and the kind of role that is of interest to me. And I know that's a lot to ask of a sophomore, but right at that point it doesn't hurt you to start. By your junior year, I would be finding the professional associations that serve that industry. And I want to talk about the concept of an ecosystem. An ecosystem means that let me give you an example. I'm in the healthcare industry, okay? I'm in the healthcare industry and I'm a program manager. You can think of me as a project manager. That will simplify the concept for you. Think of me as a project manager who works in the healthcare industry. Now, in the healthcare industry, we have technology providers. We have people who provide things like bandages and syringes and stuff like that. We have people who provide staffing and nursing and things like that. We have all these different roles. So all of those roles together provide, or they create what we call an ecosystem. And so it helps me think from my point of view. I'm a project manager in the technology department side of things. And so if I were laid off tomorrow, I would have a couple of options. I could go to another healthcare provider. I could go to another hospital, so to speak, and try to do the same role there. Or I could realize that I could springboard into one of the suppliers for that hospital. So in my case, I could go work for one of the software providers that is selling to hospitals or is providing networking services. So Cisco Systems would be a good target for me. Epic is a software company that we use. They would be a good target for me. So there are all these other places that I could go if I got laid off tomorrow. And so when I think about networking, having contacts in each of those areas wouldn't be a bad thing to do. So in terms of having a networking strategy, you might want to think about those different areas and over time building some contacts there. So if things suddenly change in your camp, you have relationships already established. But getting back to the concept of networking before you graduate, what you probably don't know is that in every industry there is at least one professional association. This is like a club that you pay to be part of where all of the project, in my case I belong to one where all the project managers belong, called PMI, Project Management Institute. But because I am in healthcare, I also belong to one that is focused on people in the technology side of the healthcare industry. So I belong to several professional associations. Every professional association, most of them anyway, have a drastically discounted membership fee for students. So it's about $150 a year for me to be a member of these associations. If I were a college student, I think I get in for like $35 a year or something. And suddenly, that gives you the right to show up at the dinners that they have, where they have speakers who come in and speak on the field. And let me tell you, it is rare that I meet a student at these events. If I did meet a student at these events, I would be pretty impressed. I would definitely be impressed. If I were a student looking for an internship, I would absolutely be attending those meetings. And I would be meeting people. You will stand out like a golden calf because there aren't very many students who are savvy enough and sophisticated enough to even think of doing that and who are willing to take their evening and go to that kind of an event. It is networking goldmine for you. So I would find a professional association in a field that you're interested in. I would spend the $35 or $45 to join them. I would start reading their trade rags, which I'll get to in a second, and that will, A, let you know more about the industry, and B, let you start making some contacts there. People will be delighted to meet you. And I'm going to refer you to a reference a little later that will help you feel comfortable going to that kind of an event and not feeling awkward. So we'll get to that. Having some contact business cards made, you probably know about vistaprint.com for, like less than $10 including shipping. You can design a very professional card and have your contact info available. So that way when people want to follow up with you, you have something that you can offer and you can ask them for their card. Okay, so we talked about attending meetings in your professional association, and next is reading the trade rags. So every one of these professional associations also has at least one publication that's about their industry. And these publications usually come out, many of them come out about once a week, and it's a great place to read what people are doing. So I'm going to try to, hang on one second. I'm going to try to drag this other screen over here, and I'm hoping you can see this okay. Reese warned me that there may be some technical problems if I do this. If anybody has trouble seeing that, please let me know. Oh, I can see that it's, I hope it's working for you.
It looks great from my end, Diane.
Okay, good.
It looks great here.
Okay, great. I'm getting some warnings on my end. So this is an example in the brewing industry. I don't mean to obsess on the brewing thing, but this is an example in the brewing industry of where this is their professional association, the Brewers Association. I shared with you that I'm a member of this group, and I get their newsletter in my in-tray. Their newsletter is free, and you can get this stuff in your in-tray, and you can learn all kinds of stuff about the industry. And you can also get a feel for how the industry is broken up. This is another publication that I follow closely, Health Data Management. Sounds pretty dry, doesn't it? It's actually fascinating. The articles are really well written, and what's nice about this is, see this bar up here? It gives you an idea. We have policy and regulation, and electronic health records is what EHR stands for, a health info exchange, revenue cycle payments, chronic care. These are the major categories in the industry. And you're gonna want to know these categories for the industry that you're interested in. I see a lot of Kappas who are interested in event planning. So I pulled up the Event Planners Association. And this is a website that if you are interested in this field, you should be all over this. If you think you're interested in a field, just go find the industry association for it and dive into it and see if it really interests you. And then learn the lingo. They have these panels and webinars, and you can start to see who some of the key players in that industry are, and it's just a great place to start. I also wanted to share with you, remember I told you I'm a project manager, so I'm also a member of this organization, the Project Management Institute. Also, do you remember I told you that we use some software called Epic? Well, it turns out that most professional associations have a forum and a discussion area. That's another great place to network and meet other people in the field. And in my case, when I go to the Epic user website, we have a forums area here, and I can communicate with other professionals in my industry who are also using Epic. This is a great place to start making those networking contacts. And you can do it by asking a question, by offering information, etc. So you can participate online and get to know these people, really. So those are all great resources because you do want to be sort of targeted in your efforts. So let me go to my next slide. It's now time for a fun poll. Reese, take it away.
Great. All right. So we're going to launch that poll. Do you attend industry associating meetings on a regular basis? Go ahead and pick the answer that fits your situation best. All right. I'm going to give a few more seconds, and we're going to close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here are the results.
So I'm not seeing the results on my end, Reese. Can you tell me what they are?
Sure. The results are, for yes, every month, I am diligent, 10%. 17% answered yes, but I am lucky if I go once a quarter. 52% say no, but I mean to, but I don't. And 21% still wonder, what is an industry association meeting?
Okay. So for the 21% of you, I hope you now understand what an industry association is and sort of how to find it. You can just Google. If I were in the well, I think I put in brewery or brewer industry association, and I went into Google, and that's how I found that group. So let's talk about setting some networking goals for yourself. First of all, number one, I will join a professional association. We've already covered that. But these are examples of specific measurable goals. I would recommend reading some resources because we're going through this stuff real fast tonight. But I would read at least 5 books, and I've given you 3 good ones. I have read all of these, and I recommend them to many people. The first one is called, the first 2 are by Diane Darling. You can get these on Amazon. The very first one is quite short. It's very good. It's 24 networking lessons. The second one is the Networking Survival Guide. I think this is fantastic. She goes through explaining how to decide which association groups to join, how to act when you get there, how to put together a networking strategy. It's the most concrete, pragmatic, actionable networking book I've ever read. So it doesn't just talk about sort of theory here. It really is the must-read in my mind. If you need some networking inspiration, I really like Keith Ferrazzi. He wrote a very easy-to-read, kind of inspiring book called Never Eat Alone. And what he means by that is, you're going to have lunch. Well, you ought to be having lunch with someone else, and you ought to be making good use of that time. But he writes a lot about being genuine and being the kind of person who's generous in helping others. And always, he gives great examples of listening for how you can help other people. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. The next potential goal for you is I will find and start following at least 3 blogs or online communities that are relevant to my field, and I will participate and contribute comments or posts on a regular basis. So you can find those by Googling around, or you can go into the communities and forum area of the professional association that you want to join. Lots of ways to find that, but start connecting with other people, or at least following other people who are writing and being very visible and prominent in your field. Okay. And now it's time for our second poll.
Great. All right. We're about to launch the poll. And it's, do you have a tool that you use to systematically capture and track your contacts database? All right. We have people answering, which is wonderful. I'll give the audience a few more seconds to answer. We'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And if you could read the results to me, I'd appreciate it.
Perfect. So for this, we have 18% saying, yes, I use MS Outlook. 29% stated, yes, I use something other than MS Outlook. 21% says, yes, I sort of have a tool. I use Facebook. And 32% says, I really don't have a method or system.
Okay. So the important thing to know here is that when you get good at networking, you're going to meet a lot of people, and you are going to want to follow up with them. And you need a good system for doing that, because it's going to get away from you really fast, and then it's going to feel overwhelming, and then you're going to stop doing it. You would be surprised at what a positive impression you will make on people when you systematically stay in touch with them. So the next goal that I want everyone to put on their list is, I will create and use a contact database to manage and track my networking activity each week. So what you want in there is, you want the personal info about that person. That includes anything you learned about them, where they grew up, anything that comes up in conversation. And you should be probing for this stuff. You would ideally like to know when their birthday is. You would like to know what kids they have. You would like to know the name of their kids. Put all of this stuff in there. You want to put in the notes from your last conversation, any notes for the next contact, and give yourself a little reminder on your calendar of when to follow up with them. You know, if they have a preferred, oh, I'm sorry, the type of contact means you want to just make a note about whether you called them, whether you emailed them, whether you sent them a handwritten note. Handwritten notes are very powerful. They're very positively received. And opportunities to send them would be if you went to an evening, you met somebody, you guys connected in a conversation, and you exchanged cards. It's a great thing to shoot them a handwritten note and say, just a quick note to let you know how much I enjoyed meeting you. I hope I run into you again at the next meeting. You could send that an email. You totally could.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
You're going to think, yeah, that's a little old-fashioned. I'm not sure that that would be received real well. Trust me, it leaves a positive impression. So it's just good to keep track of what kind of contact you had. This database that you're going to create is going to be your lifesaver. It's going to give you the chance to remember people's birthdays and shoot them a note. Facebook is still used in our personal world. Most of us are not using Facebook in our professional world. So even though Facebook does a lovely job of cueing you when people's birthdays are, I don't have anybody from my employer in my Facebook friends. I don't have anyone. I keep a real wall between those two. So you want to have a separate method. MS Outlook contacts can absolutely do this for you. You'll probably want to customize some fields. But the other thing that's nice about this is, if you make it a goal to start learning these things about people, it gives you a purpose for when you talk to them. You know, if you don't know very much personally about somebody, then the next time you chat them up, you're going to want to probe a little bit and ask them, you know, so tell me about your family. Are you married? Or, you know, whatever. I mean, do this appropriately. I know you can sense how to do this appropriately. But people really do like to talk about themselves. And I'll give you an acronym. The word FORD, F-O-R-D, FORD, stands for family, occupation, recreation, and dreams and goals. And so when you're trying to make small talk with somebody, think of FORD, and feel free to politely and gently ask about any of those areas. It's a great way to keep the conversation going. But the point is, you need a system. And you got to have something that is a database, something at least like MS Outlook contacts area. Okay, let's talk about attending the in-person networking events. When you go to these events, and Diane Darling's book will prepare you better for this, so I beg you to get and read that book. You need to have some goals and make sure that you make yourself go talk to at least 10 different people. And your goal each time is to be friendly, have some small talk, have some questions to get that conversation going, have some things that you're willing to ask for, even if it's not work-related, if that's too much. Have a little mental list of things in your life that you would be willing to bring up in the conversation, just in case it's a hook, that it could provide a hook between the two of you. So I'll give you an example. I recently had to let my housekeeper go, and I'm looking for a new housekeeper. And I'm asking everyone I know because I want a personal referral from someone else. It is not inappropriate when you're chatting about your vacations or whatever to bring up the fact that, you know, I happen to be in the market for a housekeeper right now. Do you happen to, you know, use one, or do you know someone who uses someone that they like that they might be willing to recommend? See how that's an ask from me? Be prepared with several things that you want to ask about. Another example would be, let's say that my family is trying to get together for a family reunion in the summer, and we're looking for a large house in Mammoth to rent. I might bring it up if we're talking about our vacations or whatever. I might say, gosh, my family's trying to plan a vacation in Mammoth, and we are in need of a good vacation rental company because we're looking for a large house to rent. Have you ever rented any property in Mammoth, and have you ever used a vacation rental company? And if somebody has, you know, they'd be happy to say so. And if not, no problem. We just sort of keep the conversation moving on to something else. But so you want to have some asks, and you want to always be listening. Now, if they're savvy, and by the way, most people are not savvy with networking, but if they are savvy, they will also be sort of floating things out there that you could help them with. One of my favorite audiobooks is called How to Build a Network of Power Relationships by Harvey McKay. And he gave an example where he had a business contact who lived in Switzerland, I think it was. And he was chatting this guy up and found out that he has a daughter in high school, and found out by questioning and by being interested that this guy's daughter was getting ready. She wanted to be a student abroad. And the guy was terrified at the idea of letting his beloved daughter just fly to another country and live with a family that he knows nothing about. And so Harvey offered, I don't remember exactly how he did this, but the net was that he basically arranged for that guy's daughter to either stay with his immediate family or with a close friend of his. And so he removed a terrible level of fear that this man had for his daughter's safety and welfare. And those people were lifelong friends forever. And then later, Harvey's family was invited to Switzerland by these people. So you see how you're always listening for that kind of thing? Now you may ask yourself, well, what does that have to do with business networking? It has everything to do with business networking, because when people feel comfortable with you on a personal basis, they feel very comfortable with you on a business basis. So I just want to mention that in order to get the ball rolling and in order to practice this stuff, you should have a little mental list of things that you want to float that somebody could offer to help you with. And you want to be constantly listening for things that someone could help. For things that you could help someone else with. Okay, so you want to have those conversations, and then you want to follow up with people. So your next goal is, at these events, I will actually follow up with those people, and I will continue to stay in touch with them on a quarterly basis. So one simple way to do that is to leave someone a message. Hey, Sue, this is Kathy. I was looking at my calendar, and I realized there's another PMI meeting this Thursday, and I'm wondering if you're going to go. I'm going to be there, and I hope I see you there too. It would be nice to catch up and see you. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Just leave a simple message like that, and people will really appreciate it. They'll look forward to seeing you. Many people, when they go to these meetings, they're terrified. They're shy. They feel like they're walking into a room of people they don't know. So for you to sort of warm it up like that before the meeting is always going to be appreciated. If there was a topic, a conversation that you had with somebody, and you then see an article about it, or you seek out an article about it as an excuse to follow up with them, by all means. You could send Mike an email and say, Mike, I really enjoyed our conversation about blah, blah, blah. And yesterday I saw this article which made me think of you. I hope you enjoy this. Have a good day. See how that's just a little touch point? People will love you for that. And so you want to be doing that with all of these contacts because you're building a relationship with them, you're impressing them, and you're making it look effortless. Why are you making it look effortless? Because you have a system behind you that's helping manage all the details of it. But you do want to make it look effortless, and it will really impress them. Okay. At each event, I will be prepared to ask for something from people. So we already covered this. I'm going to go through it quickly here. One example that is business related is, we're trying to make a decision on a new CRM system at my company, and that's customer relationship management. Is that something your company has purchased lately? Yes. Is there someone there I could talk to find out about their decision process? Well, yes. Let me hook you up. Great. Give me your card. I'll follow up with you Monday, and maybe you could facilitate an introduction. So see how we're using that person not because they themselves decided on the new CRM system, but their company bought one and they're willing to put you in touch with that contact. So once again, the person themselves has a network of people that may be of use to us. But if we're not clear on the kind of help we're looking for, then they don't really know how to help us. So that's why we want to be prepared to ask for something. And the last point here is I will always actively listen for anything that might be an ask from them. And what that means is anything that they might need help with. They may not be savvy enough to actually explicitly ask for it, so we need to always be listening and ready to offer help if we have a contact that might be of interest. So we're going to talk for a minute about setting and tracking your goals for networking. Again, for this, you also need a system. And what I recommend you do, let me see if I can do this, is use a simple spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet that we have advocated on Kappa Connections for like 5 years. It is so simple, it's fantastic. Let me walk you through it, and any of you who want this are very welcome to have it. So basically what we have here is categories in my life. I have spiritual, family, business, financial, and personal. Personal is fun, health, social. Financial is my family's money. Business is my career stuff, and this is where I have a lot of my networking goals. This is a template, by the way. This is not my personal one. And you want to have specific goals in family and spiritual if that's something that you care about. So I have my longer-term goals, which are beyond 18 months, my goals within an 18-month window, and my 90-day goals. My 90-day goals are really my immediate radar screen. And so what I do is I set my 90-day goals, which are inspired by my 18-month goals. So everything in my 90-day goal, some of them at least, should be chipping away at my 18-month goals. And as I complete a goal, I color it yellow. And then at the end of the quarter, I go ahead and copy and paste this into a new tab. So I would just take this whole thing and copy it into the second quarter tab And then once I did that, I would delete everything that was yellow because I had already completed that. And what I've done is I've automatically rolled over the stuff that I did not complete. But I do encourage you to actually use something like this as your working document for your goals in all of the areas of your life, and you should have networking goals in your business section. So I'm going to go back to this. And ooh, we're doing good on time. So we have time for some Q&A at this point. What questions do we have now? I actually don't have visibility to the question area.
All right, Diane. Hi. We did have a question earlier about LinkedIn as a possible source of managing your contacts, and had a question about whether or not LinkedIn would be something to use.
That's a great question. Let's talk for a minute about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is fantastic. I highly encourage you to use it. I don't feel like it's a good source unless it's got a lot of functionality that I am not aware of. It's not going to give you a place to be able to keep a database on your contacts like this. It will tell me who are all of the people who work for XYZ company that I'm interested in. It will let me, it gives me some visibility to what my business contacts there are doing, and I have a lot of contacts in LinkedIn. But I would want to, if I'm interested in developing an ongoing relationship with those contacts, I would want to have them in a separate database where I'm making notes on the conversation. I'm putting a trigger in my calendar to find a reason to ping them. And by ping, I mean shoot them an email, leave them a voicemail, you know, a personal contact. I don't consider Link a personal contact forum. Now, one of the big mistakes that I see people making in Link is when a lot of Kappas will shoot me an invitation to LinkedIn, and I don't recognize their name, and they did not tailor the invitation in any way. They basically took a bunch of Kappa alums and sent them all this generic LinkedIn invitation. And that's just dumb. I'm sorry, that's just dumb. Because if I don't, and occasionally, usually I just delete them. Occasionally, I will reply back and say, I'm sorry, how do I know you? Because I don't link in with just anybody. I like to link in with people that I actually have a relationship with or have worked with. And many cases, that person will reply back and say, oh, you know, we're both Kappas and I'm on this network. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you're already showing networking naivete. What you should be doing instead is send an invitation that says, Dear Joan, you and I are both members of blah, 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 and I'm a Kappa living in Oklahoma, and I would appreciate, you know, connecting with you on LinkedIn. That at least gives me context for this, frankly, a stranger that I don't know who wants to link in. And if I would say yes, if somebody had the grace to approach me that way, I would say yes. And you know, they might be a good contact. But people who shoot out that generic LinkedIn invitation are making a big mistake. You should always, always, always tailor that invitation to make it gracious, give the person context, and I often, by the way, when I'm offering to link in with somebody or I'm asking to link in, I always demonstrate reciprocity by ending my note with saying, if I or my extended network can ever be of assistance to you, please don't hesitate to contact me. Remember earlier when we talked about reciprocity? And if somebody was to do something nice for you, you must thank them and you must demonstrate to them that you understand the concept of reciprocity, that you get it. And you do that by graciously saying basically what I just said as you thank them. Thank you so much for the introduction to Joe. My conversation with him was really helpful, and I appreciate you having made the effort to connect us. If I or and I would say I look forward to returning the favor. If I or my network can ever be of assistance to you, please don't hesitate to ask. Let's stay in touch. Thanks again, Diane. So that's my diatribe about LinkedIn. I think it's a wonderful tool, but it's not enough to serve as your contacts database system. There's nowhere in there that I can make notes about the name of their dog. But I want them to think that I remember our conversations so well, that I remember the name of their dog. And when I bring it up next time, I'm going to mention the name of their dog. And it's going to leave a positive impression with them. They don't have to know that I had help. Another nice thing to do, by the way, when you're at these networking meetings, if
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
turn the card over and make immediate notes on the back of it while your memory is fresh. And then that way you can